7th Design Review Board. We're awaiting board member Kim, and we're gonna wait about 5 minutes to see if she joins before we get started without her. Has joined us, so we'll get started. We'll start with roll call.
Board Member Holscher,
Here.
Board Member Odorcio,
Here.
Board Member Kim. Here. And Vice Chair Rosner,
Here.
and Chair Chong is absent.
Great. Next up on the agenda is if there's for oral communications, if there's anything that's not on the current agenda tonight that the public wishes to address the board, now is the time to do so. We'll start in the room if there's anyone in the room to address the board on something not on the agenda. No one on the room. Is there anyone on Zoom that wishes to make an oral communication?
Chair Rosner, there are no hands raised.
All right. Great. We will then move to staff briefing. Is there a staff briefing this evening?
Actually, thank you, Chair Rosner. I do want to report at last night's town council meeting. The council took two actions which are fairly relevant to development within the community. One is the council adopted the updated SB 9 regulations. I think that was reviewed and approved by recommended for approval by the Planning Commission earlier this year. And so those are amendments to the urban lot split section and the two family development regulations. So those are now compliant with state law. The other action was recent activity at the state legislature in an effort to reduce obstacles to housing, actually created a somewhat of a time limit on agencies' ability to do amendments to the building code, particularly for the purpose of green building and electrification. So staff, there's a time requirement to finish any adoptions largely by and have them in effect by October 1st. So this came to our attention in early June. Most agencies have been scrambling to review and make any updates to their REACH codes. This essentially affects REACH codes at this point. Before that adoption. So working with our sustainability coordinator, the staff did put together some amendments to the code to expand a bit on our flex path approach and reducing the flex path for additions, flex path requirements for additions from 750 square feet to 500 square feet. That's something a number of agencies are doing throughout the county, and triggering EV upgrades in conjunction with not just with new construction, but with change outs to service panels. So there are a few updates, and then the town will be doing a full update to the building code in concert with the 2025 amendments to the building code that will be coming into effect in 2026 on January 1st, 2026. So later in probably late October, November, we'll be presenting a full update to the code, but this was sort of a rushed effort to update any reach codes before these restrictions set in. And again, Grace Ledwith, our sustainability coordinator, was really lead on this. If you have questions on the details, there's a great presentation and the staff report from last night's council meeting. I'm not too versed on all the technical ins and outs of this latest update.
Okay. Great. Thanks very much for that. We will now move on to the minutes. If someone would, if anyone has any edits to the minutes, otherwise, we'd be looking for a motion.
I'd like to abstain since I wasn't there.
Motion to accept the minutes.
Is there a second?
I second.
All in favor of adopting the minutes? Aye. Opposed and one abstention. The adoption passes, and then we will now move on to our public hearings for the evening, starting with PH1. If I could find it, is 23 Mercury Ave. PH1 is an appeal, so it follows a slightly different procedure than non-appeal agenda items. And just to kind of recap what that procedure is, the town staff may make a brief, about 10-minute presentation if they wish. Next, we'll have the appellant present for 10 minutes, followed by the applicant presenting for another 10 minutes. If the chair does have discretion to increase that time, so if the appellant wishes to speak for longer, please let us know when you take the stand, because we have to have equal amount of time allocated for the appellant and the applicant. And once that's finished, the public will be able to speak for 3 minutes. And then the appellant is entitled to a 3-minute rebuttal, and the applicant is also entitled for a 3-minute rebuttal. So that's how it goes.
Could I ask town council or staff question about the procedure? Are we looking at the merits of the claim, or are we simply looking at whether or not the director of development had jurisdiction or had authority to make the decision? Are we or are we trying to argue? Are we trying to do it based on whether or not she made the right decision, or whether or not she had the right to authority to make her statement? Sorry.
I would say that the purpose of, or to answer your question, I think what you're really doing, you're reviewing the application more or less de novo to determine whether or not the decision was correct in determining that the project complies with the requirements for architectural and site plan review and the guidelines therein. So it's really just a matter of reviewing that, and in doing that, of course, the decision you're either upholding the decision to approve the application or overturning the decision in some way, whether you deny the application or impose modifications. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And yep.
Great. All right. So with that, we'll start. Does the town staff have a briefing for 23 Mercury Avenue?
I understand.
Good
And I
evening,
ha-
Vice Chair Rossner. Or do you want me to?
Yeah, I have our staff planner on this matters. Samantha Bonifacio is here. She is working remote, but she can, I think, address any questions you have on the application and the appeal.
Yeah, I apologize. I can't be there in person tonight, but thank you all for your time. So what you have before you, it is an appeal of a staff level decision. It is just to clarify regarding the proposed installation and approval of a trellis. The trellis is attached to an ADU and a deck, but they are exempt from zoning permits due to state legislation. So I'm happy to answer any questions you have. But otherwise, I feel like it's pretty straightforward, and I will let you move to the appellant's presentation. Thank you.
Great. Thanks, Sam. With that, we will invite the appellate, Sean Husey and Lauren Cromwell of 25 Mercury Avenue to the microphone. You'll have 10 minutes.
I'm going to control the screen.
You're gonna.
Okay.
This is back and forth.
And the arrows are next page.
Yep.
Is that how it goes? Yeah. On those.
I share it, so
Share your screen.
how do I share?
Okay. Hi, my name is Sean Hussey. My wife Lauren Cromwell and I live at 25 Mercury Avenue, which is next door to the trellis location we're discussing. So we
Just,
could-
I'm sorry, 1 second. Chris, can we start the timer? And would you be able to speak in the microphone just a little bit closer?
Yeah.
Thanks.
Just trying to get to the next slide here.
Is the
It's
clicker not working?
not that I can tell.
Chris, he's trying to move forward. I don't know if the clicker is working.
Okay. Cool. Thank you. Okay. Thanks for giving us a chance to speak tonight. I'll focus on a few key points, although I hope you do get a chance to read the presentation in full before you make your decision. As it says here, we're appealing the decision for a few reasons. One is privacy loss. The trellis sits at the top of a slope just behind our house and looks directly into our backyard and main living spaces. I'll show a few pictures later on in the presentation to provide some more perspective on this. Visual impact. This will be a tall, 11-foot, 8-inch, almost 12 feet black metal and wood structure that's dense in design. Currently, we have a clear view up to the hill and open space in that direction. This will be interrupted with the trellis. It's very noticeably the only structure of its type in the neighborhood and will be very prominent. There's nothing like it up there currently, if you're familiar with the neighborhood. Sunlight obstruction. The trellis will provide shade by design and will block sunlight, particularly in the winter months when the sun's lower. Variance light setback situation. The trellis posts are 8 feet from the property line with a 3-foot roof overhang, creating a 5-foot setback versus a traditional 8-foot setback. The property we're talking about is almost 0.4 acres. And so because there's so much space to build, we feel this encroachment is unnecessary and inconsiderate, especially when there's ample room to build further from the line. The approval seems to rest solely on code compliance, but the design review board has 2 other mandates, which are, 1, to promote orderly development, and 2, to preserve the unique visual character of the town. It's these other 2 mandates that we feel are being overlooked in this case. To resolve these issues, we're asking that the trellis be moved to the west side of the yard, south of the ADU. If that can't happen, pulled back from the hill and made shorter so it's not visible from our yard, and also moved away from the property line to a more reasonable and neighbor-friendly setback position. To be clear, we are very supportive of our neighbors and their project in general. Even the ADU and the hillside work, which would normally face significant scrutiny without today's ADU exemptions, we're okay with. And there's nothing like this being built up on the hill, and we're in fact okay with all of it, and we're okay with the trellis too. Our only issue is with the location of the trellis. So with that, I will keep going here. I'll have to sort of speed up a little bit due to time, but to give you some background and context on where we're coming from, we did this a few years ago, and we made hundreds of thousands of dollars of accommodations at the request of our neighbors in the town to satisfy the two principles that we're discussing today: orderly development and preserving the town's unique visual character. The changes we made in our project had nothing to do with code, and the changes included avoiding 2 stories, which was customary with a neighborhood. We changed a modern roof in the backyard to a traditional roof because the neighbors in the town felt that they preferred a more traditional look. We increased setbacks beyond 8 feet in the side yard where there wasn't much room to begin with. And these were all changes made in the spirit of neighborhood cooperation and to satisfy the design review process. Page 7 is a quick summary of our remodel process and the proposed trellis process here. Our process, we feel, were major changes for low impact. I mean, basically what we were talking about is our neighbor got a few more inches of view into our backyard for, again, hundreds of thousands of dollars of changes. In this case, we're not even talking about the core project, which happens to be an ADU, and understand that, you know, can't be touched. We're just talking about a trellis, a small edit to a trellis, but a major change and a sort of impact to our yard and our property. Putting that comparison aside, I think the one thing we took from our process was an appreciation for the process, and that, like in Tiburon, you can't just sort of build whatever you want, wherever you want. The neighborhood matters, comments from the neighbors matter, views matter, and sort of we came away with from our project, you know, saying, okay, fine, that's the way it is. But in this case, it seems that all of these things have been forgotten. Pages 10 through 15 show the view impact, the privacy impact. So this is the view from the top of the hill into our backyard. We of course have a front door, but this is the entrance we use every day coming into the house and looking right up into the trellis. This is the view from our kitchen to the trellis in the top left there. This is the view from our master bedroom to the trellis. This is the view from our backyard up to the trellis. Next point, visual aesthetic and impact. As I mentioned before, this is not a sort of wooden garden structure. This is effectively, this is a very dense structure, almost like an outdoor sort of open air room. I'm going to keep moving here due to time. Setback proximity, I mentioned this, but we feel that there's no reason to have a 5-foot setback when you have almost an acre to build on. Half an acre, I'm sorry, 0.4. Sunlight obstruction. You know, the sun happens to, not now in the summer, but in the winter, the sun happens to set right over that corner. And that trellis, the way it is densely structured, will block the sun in the winter. So those are some information on the issues list. We did also want to comment on the initial principles that were looked at when the trellis was approved originally. And so when the trellis was approved originally, the town looked at a number of principles. One is site plan adequacy. And if I can just find my place here. This principle talks about orderly development and not being detrimental to the general welfare. There's a comment here in the approval comments that talk about the fact that the uphill was improved already and that the new trellis will be similar footprint to the old trellis. Well, just because the the uphill was improved already doesn't mean that, you know, everything after that is okay. You can't just sort of put anything there. And this new trellis is very different from the old trellis. This is, again, a very dense structure. The old trellis was wood color, very open, more like a garden, you know, structure. Page 23. Site layout in relation to adjoining sites. This principle talks about view considerations, privacy, adequacy of light and air. There are no considerations in the approval comments for this principle, you know, related to the things that we've mentioned here. I talked about views, I talked about privacy already, so I'm not going to repeat those. Page 25, and the principle on neighborhood character. This principle states height, size, bulk of the proposed project bears a reasonable resemblance to the character of other existing buildings in the vicinity. To be clear, there are no other projects like this in the neighborhood. You know, the comments mention accurately that the neighborhood has traditionally been a one-story, you know, neighborhood because of privacy, which, you know, this directly conflicts with, you're going to have a trellis on the top of a, you know, house looking down on everything, effectively a second story. And if I could have maybe like 1 or 2 more minutes.
You still have 1 minute, and I know we started 30 seconds late, so
Okay.
I'll credit you that.
When the decision was made, we filed an appeal. The town commented on our appeal comments, and so very quickly I will comment on those comments. Page 29 talks about proximity to property lines. The trellis sets within setbacks lines. Okay, fine, but could it be further than the 5 feet? That would be much appreciated. Page 30, continuing on that same point, there's a comment here that says the trellis does not introduce any new vantage points and so does not impact privacy. I would argue that that's not necessarily correct. 1, it's going to be raised 2 feet. 2, it's going to be another 12 feet. And the point here centers around the fact that the top of the hill was already developed, but this trellis is creating a meeting point, which happens to be overlooking our whole property. Page 31, visual aesthetic. There's a comment here that says, because the contemporary design of the trellis matches the design of the ADU, it will be less visible. So sure, it will be less visible with the ADU in the background, but from our vantage point, having a black contemporary trellis up on the hill where we previously had, you know, a view to the sky is going to make it, in fact, more visible. Reduced sunlight, I've mentioned, and the setback variance-like situation. And lastly, the minor versus major review. I mean, we talked about that a little bit in the beginning. We feel that this should have been a major review in the beginning, just given the impact on the neighbors. That's kind of a side point. But I mean, in conclusion, again, we support the project. We support the ADU. We think it's a very nice design. We like the trellis. It's just the location of the trellis that's really impacting us negatively, and so we would ask that it be moved. That's it.
Great, thank you. I do want to note for the public, we did extend the appellant an extra 1.5 minutes, and we will do the same for the applicant. Does the board have any questions for the appellant?
Yep.
Okay. Were you about to say something? Oh, you. I do have one question. Can you just describe a little bit about I'm pulling up on Google Earth, so that actually has the old trellis. The difference in the view from your kitchen and your backyard of the old trellis, has the location changed? Is it purely just the material, the proposed materials are changed? Can you just walk us through that a little bit more?
So back on the old trellis was done without a permit. And then those neighbors, they've moved. But to answer your question, I mean, the old trellis was very open. It was a wood structure, you know, 5 or 6 slats across the top. And we didn't like the location of that trellis either, but it was far less visible.
Okay.
Does that help a little bit?
Yep, that helps. No, yeah, yeah. I got it. Any other questions? I do have a question for staff, I guess. I think you're all set. Thank you.
Okay.
Do we have any context on the old trellis and whether or not it was done with or without a permit? Did it go through design review? Would it have been subject to design review?
Hello. The old permit, or pardon me, the old trellis did go through a design review process. There are some differences. I don't know how, like, what questions you like, but yes, it did have to go. It was unpermitted structure, and it did have to get a retroactive approval and building permit.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm.
All right, with that, we will ask the applicant, which, the owner representative of 23 Mercury Avenue to, come to the microphone. You will have, I think, 11 and a half minutes.
Okay, thank you. I'll try to be a lot faster than that.
We need just a moment to get,
Okay.
Looks like you're in. Looks like you're ready to go. Can we get the timer up for 11 and a half minutes?
do 12 minutes and
Sure.
top off.
Okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Good evening. My name's Ted Beno. I'm the architect for the project with OXB Studio Architects. I'm here on behalf of Ivan Demidov, the owner of the property. Ivan did not build the trellis. He's a newer owner. He didn't build the original trellis. Don't think he lived there or debated the neighbor's project when that was underway either. Oh, how do I change that?
Someone leaning on the.
I'm gonna pause the. This is cool feature.
I could just go really fast and
Yeah.
try to keep up with it.
Give it a try before I start the time.
Well, this is the drawings, not the,
Advance. Okay,
yeah,
thank you.
This is what you want.
but it's not my presentation.
It's closed out.
That's the project.
First one.
No, I have it on a flash drive. Would that be helpful?
Yeah, I think he closed it to minimize them.
There it is.
Here, all right.
All right, great.
That works. Ready?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. So, let's see, I'm gonna try to be brief here. I hope you all had a chance to review the staff report. It addresses the appeal items one by one in detail and recommends that the board deny the appeal. To avoid repeating staff's comments and in respect of everyone's time, I will not go over each item. However, I want to make sure the board is aware of a few key points about the appeal and the project as a whole. The ADU and the deck do not require design review and have already received approval. Construction is currently underway on the foundation of the ADU and the deck. The only aspect of the project that requires design review is the trellis. We are not requesting a variance for the trellis or any part of the project. Project meets all zoning codes, including setback requirements. We have a survey. This was not brought up in the earlier presentation, but it was addressed in the appeal itself. We do have a survey that is drawn, stamped, and signed by a licensed surveyor who is also assisting for layout during construction, so there are no concerns of things being located incorrectly. The survey is included in your drawing packet too at the end. The appeal letter refers to the trellis impacting privacy. And I just want to point out that the trellis is actually simply a shade structure, not a second story deck, and therefore it really has no impact on privacy. It is important to remember that the deck is already approved and is not being considered for design review. Photos, including in the appeal letter, don't really provide an accurate representation. This picture here was in the appeal letter, and you can kind of see that they were standing here for that shot. The trellis, this is actually prior to the story poles going up, but this is the old trellis that you can see right here. And I want to point out the new trellis is really only about a foot taller than the old trellis. And it is larger, but it is further away, which I'll show in a later slide. And then here's a photo that I took from the project site looking down towards the neighbor's house. So if you compare that to this with all of the vegetation in between the two properties, it's a bit of a different vantage point. Visual impact and blocking sunlight are also listed on the appeal letter as concerns. So this is a diagram comparing the old trellis, which is this line right here, to the new trellis, which is drawn here in black, and then the old patio, which is here, compared to the new deck, which is here. So I just want to point out that both the new deck and the trellis are further away from the neighbor than the old patio and trellis. I went to the property to review the story poles. And, you know, while I understand that the sun angle is really high right now in the summer, it's hard for me to imagine that the trellis will cast shadows on the neighbor's property. If it does, I imagine it would just be in sort of the winter when the sun is at its lowest angle and right before the sun sets. I also want to point out that I don't think the new trellis will cast any more shade than the old trellis. You can kind of see based on this location versus this location that it's not a whole lot different. It's not 12 feet tall either. The deck is 2 feet above grade, and then the trellis is 8 feet above the deck. So it's pretty minimal in comparison to the deck. I also just want to say that we reached out to the neighbors on June 20th to see if we could work something out with them. They did acknowledge my email initially, but then never heard back from them after that. And that is all I have for you. Happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thanks very much. Any questions from the board?
Are the louvers fixed or are they do they rotate?
They're fixed.
They're fixed, okay.
There's about 7 inches of space in between each louver, and each louver is 1.5 inches thick.
And what's the height on those?
They are,
Sorry, I should have looked at the
no
detail.
worries. I will tell you. 6, 2 by 6.
Okay.
5.5.
Okay,
Technically.
and what's the materiality of the louvers?
They're going to be cedar.
Cedar, okay, thank you.
Sure.
I do have one question. I'm sorry. Anyone else have any questions first?
Yeah, just real quick, there are no setback requirements that were violated, and there's no height restriction that was encroached on, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
If you want, we can go back to a slide and I can show you the setback lines.
I think I saw it. but I
Okay.
couldn't clarify.
The post,
I thought
the
that
trellis
was-
post is 8 feet away, and then the overhang is 3 feet.
I do have a question because I visited the site yesterday and I just want to confirm, because on your story pole plan, it seems like the 2 red horizontal, red marked horizontal wood posts or wood beams
Mhm,
are almost 10 feet apart according to the story pole plan.
mhm.
Was that true? Because it feels like I'm looking at my picture, it looked much shorter, so I just want to, I know if did it have to get moved because of active work or?
So I didn't measure them. You know, I'm hoping they're in the correct place.
Okay,
I didn't verify them. What I do know is that it was really tough for them to put up the story poles because they're digging foundations
yeah,
as we speak. So they did the best they could. I wish we could have built something that really represented the way the trellis overhangs and doesn't have posts.
yeah,
There's posts coming down in corners where there
okay,
aren't really posts, if you know
Yeah.
what I mean.
yeah,
So they just did the best they could.
okay. But you feel pretty confident that that front one is
It's in the right
the right,
location.
okay, okay, cool. Is your question?
Well, can you go back to the slide that shows the overlay of the new trellis over the old?
Can we bring the
Oh.
presentation back up?
Sure.
Thank you.
Ruh-roh.
There it is.
Oh, because it,
So this is
Oh.
oops. This is the shape of the old patio, which is on grade. And this is the shape of the new deck, which is 2 feet above grade. And then old trellis right here. And new trellis right here.
it's hard for me to see at least. It's the new trellis, it's just inset from the outer line, right? Okay, I just want to clarify.
There's the new trellis
Yeah.
projects a little bit further right there, but you can see, look at how much further away from the property line we are
Sure.
right here.
I
And
just
then
need to-
also, I mean, it's pretty similar in terms of how far forward it is.
Okay, thank you.
And I maybe just had one question, like more on the motivation side of shade on the entirety. Can you just walk us through, did you explore other options? Is it to accommodate a certain furniture plan? That'd just be helpful for the board to hear.
Yeah, we're trying to put shade on the deck that's right off of the side. It's a little bit cut off here, but there's a couple sliding doors that slide away from a corner right here. So this is the living space of the ADU. There is a beam that comes across from this post to this post. And we're just, so it's a seating area with shade.
Okay.
Yeah. I also did want to point out that the deck and the ADU, they're where they are. We were trying to work with the existing landscaping that had been done up on the top of that site. That was really nice. So we were trying not to have to redo that and work with that as much as possible. So the new trellis is same location as the old trellis. The new deck is same location as the old patio. And the other side of the ADU is just a nice big lawn. And there are some views there, so we just don't want to cut that off with a trellis.
Great. Thanks very much.
Sure.
With that, we invite the appellant up for 3 minutes to address anything that has been previously spoken or mentioned. Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry. Yes. Public comment. Sorry about that. Jumped the gun. Now's the time for public comment. If anyone wishes to address the board from the public on this matter, you'll have 3 minutes. I'll start with the room. Yes.
Yeah, I'm here. Excuse me.
You could just state your name and.
My name is John McLeod, and we live at 21 Mercury next door to 23. And up until the last few days, I didn't realize the story poles were relating to a trellis. I thought they were the actual ADU. And hearing that it's a trellis attached to the ADU, unfortunately, I feel I must go against the current position and the design of the trellis. It's a solid roof covering a large area. It's not an open frame trellis like what was up there. This feels like it's very close to the edge of the hill compared to the old trellis from what I could tell. And the impact on our neighbors at 25 Mercury is a big concern for me, both their privacy, their view, and their living quarters. I think at this point, I got to say, it's just too much in everybody's view from the neighborhood and the neighbors directly affected by it. And it feels like it's more, more of an industrial style roof over the patio than an open air trellis with a wood frame. There's a lot of Belveron. I've lived there many years. Our views are looking up on the hills. We're not on the hill looking down at anything. It's all about the hills above us and the night skies and the sunsets. And anyway, like I say, I get along with both of the neighbors. I appreciate both of them, but I really feel like this should be pushed to another position or moved back from the edge of the hillside. Thank you very much.
Great. Thank you very much. Anyone else from the public wish to comment that's in the room right now? Seeing none, we'll go to the Zoom if there's anyone on Zoom.
Chair Rosner, there is no public comment from the Zoom audience.
Great, thank you. Now we will invite the appellant back up to the microphone for 3 minutes to address anything you'd like. Thanks.
This will be quick. I think the previous comments, I think, as I mentioned before, we're focused on the code, being compliant with code. The fact that trellis has no impact on privacy, I disagree with. The trellis is sort of a key part of creating a gathering point on the top of the hill, which happens to overlook our entire property. A comparison versus old versus new, I think while it's true that there's a trellis there before, the comparison's misleading. The previous trellis was a light, as John mentioned, open wood structure with minimal visual impact and rarely used. That's irrelevant almost. What's proposed now is fundamentally different, larger, made of black metal, nearly 12 feet tall, designed as a permanent gathering space. There's a change in scale, design, intended use directly increases the privacy impact on our home. It's not about what was there before, but it's about what's going there now that we should be focused on. So that's comparison of old versus new. There was a comment about not being sure if there was going to be a shade impact in the winter, but a later comment about the point of the trellis providing shade. So I think we can be, certain that the trellis is going to provide shade and will have a shade impact certainly during the winter. And lastly, I'll just reiterate the point about, there are sort of three principles that the design review board is here to sort of maintain. And it's not just the code, but again, it's the orderly development and the visual character that we're also sort of working with. So with that, I'll finish up. Thank you.
Thanks very much. Anyone on the board have any questions? All right. The applicant is invited to, okay. All right. Thanks very much. Just for record, applicant yields his time. We will now bring it, close public comment, bring it back to the board. Who wants to kick us off?
Yes, I will. Okay, so I went over there and went into the neighbor, the appellant's house, and looked up. And I have read all the reports, and I have a few thoughts about this. Per code, I think the planner, I understand why it was approved the way it is. The notes that the appellant made, the only one that I find compelling that gives me pause is the privacy. I think visual impact and sunlight, and it's not a variance, it's in the proper place. I think it's attractive. It's an open roof. It's a, it's a louvered trellis. It's in keeping with the architecture of the ADU. So I don't have any issues there. I do think that when I looked up, I could see the back part of the trellis kind of right up there. And if I lived there, I would be bummed. I mean, I think that either through landscaping, I have some thoughts about it. It's less about code, and so you guys can direct me on this. And to me, it's more about just neighborly modifications, maybe to be neighborly and soften it a little bit. So my thoughts are, can it be shortened a little bit? Is there any kind of slat work that can happen on the side of it to create a little bit of a visual buffer up into where the people are going to be gathering? I think the difference with the trellis, the old trellis was there. It makes sense that the new trellis is there. The difference is there is going to be an ADU there. So there is going to be shelter for people to be up there. And then the trellis is attached to that. So the likelihood of it being used. Now, they should be able to use their trellis as far as I'm concerned. I think it makes a lot of sense. But I think that if it could be somehow modified to move away a little bit more, directed some way or another in some sort of creative treatment with the side, it could be visually, spatially oriented toward the interior of the property instead of down. Because the property line is also at an angle, it feels like it's oriented toward the neighbor more than it is. So I have no issue with it being there. I think there is an opportunity to respond a little bit, to create a little bit more privacy. And then I'll just Let me just make sure I made some notes here. Yeah, it is single story. It's not second story. Yeah, I think that's it. So it's just more of a kind of,
Can I ask staff
Want
and the
something?
attorney, what are our options here? It's deny the appeal. Can we do a denial of the appeal with conditions? I'm just trying to figure out what our options are.
Yeah, you can grant the appeal, you can deny the appeal, or you can modify the decision. So you could kind of grant in part, deny in part, but you can add modifications to the approval.
Okay.
And if, just so I understand, if we grant the appeal,
Mhm.
does it then get kicked back? It's not a new application. Is that the same as if we were to continue a project like we do on normal projects, or?
Well, I think, again, I like to kind of frame it that you're really looking at this de novo, like it's an application to you. The fact that the staff made a decision and approved it, that's on appeal. So the merits of that decision are certainly in question. And your action tonight is whether or not to uphold the appeal, you're basically in the position of either approving the application as it's proposed, upholding the decision of staff, or potentially looking for modifications. And in those cases, I tend to encourage boards and boards or commissions looking for design to engage with the applicant in terms of here's ideas, here's things we'd like to see. What do you think? What changes can you make to address these concerns? Or you can deny the application.
Okay.
But if you're looking to make changes, I'd suggest either if it's something that you feel could be done in a very clear, objective condition, move it, kind of back X amount or move it, shift it some way that the applicant can say, yeah, we can do that. That's very clear, then that's something that could be done as a condition of approval. If it really is something you need to see some redesign, then it's, give some direction. It's probably better coming back.
I think that was a question, is
Yeah.
if that is the direction, do we then grant the appeal and that triggers it just coming back? It's more procedural is what I think, at least I'm asking.
If you want it to come back, you could continue
Okay, we can
making a
continue.
decision
Okay.
on the actual what's before you, which is either granting or denying. So you can continue. If you grant the appeal, you're the final decision-making body on this because it's an appeal from staff. So there's nowhere to go after, but you can continue
Okay, that's what.
if you want to make it, yeah.
Okay, great, thanks.
My only other suggestion on continuing is if you see there's a solution that can be done, fairly readily.
Mm.
And that's something that can come back. And that with a project like this, it's probably fairly straightforward and can be done. It's just some projects, there are so many modifications, and whether or not that's going to be accomplished is kind of the question on whether to continue it or deny it. But
Okay, great, thanks.
can I make one more comment
Sure.
based on that? I think when I said that maybe something like it could just be either reduced or shifted. And I do think that I see also there is a door in here. But if that corner were removed to give enough room outside the door, and then the rest of the occupiable deck and trellis were another, looks like about 5 or so feet away, that might just again get it a
But
little
we
bit
can't say,
further
we can't
away.
say anything about the ADU, unfortunately. We can't.
No, not the ADU.
Oh,
Not the ADU, just the
okay.
trellis.
Just the trellis.
Just the
Okay.
trellis.
Okay.
Yeah. So. done.
I'll go next. I think I'm comfortable that the director of development had the authority to make the decision and had the right to to do a desk review. And I do believe that the Director of Development's assessment on the merits of the original application, I do support them. I actually, I, f- I think the director made the right decision. The only thing I ask, and I don't find the arguments of the I don't know who the parties are. The the appellant, is it the appellant or the applicant? The applicant in this case is asking for an appeal, right? So the applicant in this case, the impacts of privacy, it's a trellis. It's going to be whether or not it's enclosed or not. It's going to be a gathering space because there's a deck in the way that the 80 is positioned. In terms of materiality, it's the structure is steel, which I understand, but the louvers are made of cedar to soften the and the to talk about the durability of it. Um, the shade impact, I mean, the shading that the shadow that's being cast with the ADU is probably gonna be much more impactful, to be honest, than the trellis. So here's where I would stand. I think I would deny the appeal, but I would ask for the neighbors just to be neighborly, that the appellant actually does provide some kind of landscaping buffer on the north side, and to really work with that side just to create some type of privacy. I was trying to go over there today, but there are too many pets that were growling at me at the doors. I tried to go to 25 and 23 today, and unfortunately, I rang a couple of times, knocked a couple of times, and didn't feel comfortable jumping the fence to take a look. But what I could see from the street, and I see from the pictures and the images that that others have shared with me, and also looking from Google Earth, I think I would deny the appeal and just ask that the the appellant be neighborly and plant
And
decent.
can I ask a question? Are you actually asking the neighbor to plant?
No.
Because it's not their application. The applicant is,
The applicant to plant things
Yeah.
in the setback
okay.
on the north side of the area. Yeah.
Jim, go ahead.
Well,
I
let's see.
think
Let's see.
to write a few notes, I think we strike a similar chord. It does have impact, some impact on the neighbors. That's why they're here this evening is stating this. It's unfortunate that there really was not an effort to resolve this with the neighbors. And because of that, it does have a change to the spirit of the neighborhood. All that being said, though, I still did not find that it rises to the level of requiring a redesign. And yet, and I think this is exactly what you're just leading to, it's still not too late for the workers, the neighbors to work together and to try to address some of these concerns that were brought up. I would not give any limitations to that or guidance on that. I would deny the appeal.
So I think I'm very much more in Phoebe's boat. I did go to the neighbors and the applicants yesterday. It does have a visual impact. I mean, I do think the privacy argument for me is not actually the strongest. I think it's more the visual impact. I think we have in the hillside guidelines, like avoid roof overhangs that are downward facing the hillside. Like it is very visual. And I don't think vegetation alone will screen the existing location because of the angle and the perspective from below and in 25. Those hedges would have to grow tall enough, which it would just basically create a wall for the applicant. So it's bad for both parties.
But
I-
there's nothing in the code. Yeah, I'm just trying to understand
The code is, I mean, we are also assessing the hillside guidelines.
Yeah. I'm just trying to assess, could you, before you leave that point, is where do you, the visual impact Like, where in the code is the visual impact? I never saw that before.
In the hill, well, the code states that we do conduct architectural and site review based on guidelines, the hillside guidelines. And hillside guidelines, as we know, there's a lot, it's a balance, but there are guidelines around Principle 8, avoid massive roof overhang and cantilevers on downhill faces. There is avoid mass and bulk on the hillside. So I wouldn't,
Okay.
that's where I'm
Okay,
coming from.
okay.
I do think we have the authority to comment on visual impact as interpreted by the hillside guidelines per the code. right?
Okay.
So I agree with board member Holscher that, and here's where now I'm a little conflicted because I do think when I looked, I think the two story poles, I could be wrong. I think they're closer to 6 feet than they're 10 feet. And even, so that's a 6-foot gap. I think even when you hit that second story pole, that difference is like, I think massive from the downhill neighbor. So it's even like if you cut back just 6 feet, I think it has a big impact for the neighbor. But where I struggle is they chose to do a 20-foot trellis along the whole to shade the entire deck for a reason, for their floor plan, for what they want. It's an interesting choice. You know, it may not have, you could equally have done a 5-foot, 6-foot roof overhang off the ADU for aesthetics and then have umbrellas. So I would be, there's motivation to do that. So I would be hesitant to do a condition of like, just chop it back six feet, because that's kind of prescribing something that we know there was a motivation to have a 20-foot roof on a deck, which again is a design choice and for whatever reason. So that's why I do want to be careful around when we talk about next steps and conditions, et cetera, that we take that in consideration. There was a reason, you know, they did this, and I don't think it was purely aesthetic. I think it was very functional. But I also agree that, you know, the existing plan, I think there's a balance between, there's no details right now in landscaping plan. The plants planted right now don't look to be in good health, are likely not on both the in front of the deck and the property line. I think having such an impact on the downhill neighbor visually, I would, and maybe this is what the appellant was kind of saying around the broader design review, is like you would have to include a landscape plan potentially for something like this. If it, you know, I think this was more of a kind of an afterthought application to some degree, where it's like, okay, we're just putting the trellis, and, you know, them not knowing the impact on the downhill neighbor. So I think it might benefit from maybe a continuance that, you know, helps, I think, the architect work with the neighbor on how much do we have to reduce it, or maybe is it purely, you know, landscaping where everyone's comfortable at. But that's kind of where my roundabout way of saying is where my current position is.
Yeah, I definitely am not in support of granting the appeal, because this is the only issue I have with it. And it was a trellis there, so again, I support it. I think I just talked more than you guys about this kind of idea of just some neighborly modifications, but per code and granting the application, I think there was no issue there. But I just think, I think that in the spirit of neighborliness, it would be nice to do something to kind of soften that back.
Sorry, can we just clarify, and maybe director want to clarify, we keep saying per code. What do we mean by that? Where do the guidelines in the interpretation of the guidelines? I'm trying to understand from both of you.
So first, I would say that there was no variance that was requested as part of this. So it meets and conforms to with the building code as stated. In terms of the design review guidelines, are a little bit more qualitative in nature. But here's where I differ from you, I think, is that I think the hillside guidelines, the intent of that was more for the preservation of value as presented in the view preservation. So value as prescribed through the value view preservation. I don't see anywhere in the guidelines that say you have to hide everything you do. You can't do that. I mean, everything's going to have an impact. And I guess our purview may be to discuss whether or not that's acceptable, like whether or not you see something, like the degree that you see something is acceptable. I would argue that because there was something there previously, it's actually a taking if you say you just can't have a trellis there, or if you say you can't have a trellis in that location. I think to me, I was convinced by that the overlay of the existing and the current of the footprint of the trellis, that there was something there, and I yes, there is potentially a gathering point that could be obstructive to or just impactful to the neighbor next door. So that's why I'm saying that in principle, like I do agree that the merits of the director making a decision, I want to preserve that integrity for, I believe this is actually a pretty minor review. But I do want to make sure that there's neighborliness because these are very contentious. So that's why I think there can be hedges, and we could recommend that there are, overhead that go over the height of humans, hedges that are there, and perhaps mature hedges that are planted there. And I strongly suggest, but we can't mandate, but strongly suggest that the neighbor does this, or the applicant does this, not the neighbor, but the applicant. That's where I stand.
Would you just clarify that for me? Are you saying you would support the appeal?
No, I would deny the appeal.
If you deny the appeal,
Yeah.
I don't understand how you can have an attachment to that. You can have some suggestions.
Yeah, so I'm
Verb-
suggesting, I strongly suggest that the applicant,
That's right, but it's still a
Yeah.
black and white question.
yes,
Accept or deny.
I accept the decision made by the director of development, yeah.
You can deny the appeal with conditions. We can make conditional. You can make conditions, just like how we make conditions on other
Right,
projects.
But even on a denial.
Yeah.
Okay. It's-
Well, if you add conditions, it would kind of be like a partially granting the appeal. However, it's phrased, in which case you would say we're upholding the decision of the director with these modifications. But there isn't a motion on the table, so we can figure out how to do that if there is a motion on the table.
I just think they're gonna look more this way because of the grass. There's gonna be a pool there someday. We're looking at the Google map, and I really think my business is not going to be looking at, if I were sitting on there, my business wouldn't be looking into the neighbor. I would be more oriented towards the grassy area that may become a pool someday, or some type of focal point. I just don't think it's going to be great to be there. So you're saying it just needs to be on the north as well as the east side, the planting? Is that what you're insinuating? Sorry, I didn't understand.
Oh, no, I mean,
Planting is a good way.
planning is a good way, and yeah, I mean,
But I don't want to, see, here's my struggle right now, is I don't want to dilute the fact that there was a desk review.
Yeah.
This is a simple desk review. And it shouldn't go all the way through the design review. So that's why I would deny the repeal.
I'm not sure I understood what you were just saying about What review?
A desk review, so that it's reviewed by,
Administrative review?
yeah, administrative or ministerial review versus going through,
Yeah, well, it's really a minor design review. It's treated like a minor design review by staff. It's still a discretionary decision.
yeah.
So it's still the decision is being made in light of the guiding principles of architectural and site plan review. So it's different than ministerial, which is really just affirming that it meets setbacks and heights and so on and signing off a permit.
Yeah, yeah, but I still want to preserve that because
Sure.
I think otherwise we'd be flooded
Well,
with discretionary discussion.
I guess I disagree. I mean, we have an appeal process. We get appealed all the time to town council, so it's the process. I think it's completely,
No, that's fine. That's why I want to preserve that though. I don't want to second guess every single decision that the director makes. So,
Are you okay with doing what I think is the obvious, that we have to deny the appeal? We could and should have them embrace our comments, but I don't know how you could take that any further.
yep. I think that's where I stand. Yeah.
I hope they do, but I don't see how you address this specific question to us. Do we accept this appeal or deny it? And I think we have to deny this.
it seems like there's consensus on the board, so if there's a motion.
Motion to deny the appeal.
I second the motion.
Should we do a roll call?
Board Member Holscher?
Deny the appeal. Is that,
Pardon?
oh, I'm sorry.
No, I don't know.
What am I, what am I supposed to say?
Do you agree with the
Yes, I
Motion
agree
to
with the
deny.
motion. Yes, sorry.
Board Member Kim?
Aye.
Board Member Dorcio?
Aye.
I know, like.
Chair Rosner?
No. The motion passes 3-1 to board member Chan is absent. The appeal is denied. Thank you very much. We will now move on to PH2, which is 85 Geldert Drive. The applicant has 20 minutes for this presentation.
Okay, we're now on Gelder, right?
We just need a few moments to get the new presentation up. Okay.
This is it.
I didn't mean to put that in, not with you. No, that's either way, I'm totally fine. They always have that problem where you can put it for this negative. And I'm trying to stop this. Yeah, I just learn that walk. Yes.
Okay, I'm going to start the clock.
Okay, thank you so much. Good evening. My name is Erin Accurso. I'm here with my husband, Vincent Accurso. We are the owners of 85 Gelder Drive, and we're here to present an application related to moving our fence back closer to our property boundary and adding a retaining wall underneath to make better use of our backyard. And my dad, Jim Arnold, helped us prepare the application, is also here in case there's any technical questions related to the application. So on this slide, I've highlighted the location of where our existing fence line is in blue, as well as where the proposed fence line would be in relation to the property boundary. Just to provide a brief background for the application, the original fence blew over in a storm in 2024, and we did a like-for-like replacement of the fence in its existing location. And then later that year, we conducted a survey to clarify the property boundaries to help us with landscape planning. I'll use the pointer if I can to highlight. Unfortunately, the slide was a little tricky on PowerPoint, but you can see where the neighbor's fence is just here, and you can see where our existing fence is just here. And so there's kind of this strip of land in between our two fences. You can see where the property boundary is here in the corner, and our proposal is to move our fence just inside of that property boundary.
We don't really have a lot of history on how that strip of property developed, but our proposal is to move the fence back closer to the property line. So we're proposing to move the fence to more fully utilize our property with a 3-foot retaining wall underneath. This will make a big difference retaining across our hillside to kind of modify the overall slope on the hillside and ultimately facilitate landscaping on that hillside for the future. We keep our garden on the hillside, and I'm often kind of slipping as I'm up and down the hill. We have 2 girls who are 2 and 8, and they love running around up there and have often fallen just because it is really quite steep and not super safe. So the retaining wall will help us level it out for a more moderate grade. And then finally, we're requesting a variance to increase the height of the fence to 7 foot 6 inches. This will make a big difference in providing some additional privacy for our property, as well as sound protection and just being mindful of our neighbor's view. This variance would not infringe upon their view of the bay, even from their patio. I think the photos that they submitted, I think just today show that view pretty clearly, that even from their downstairs view, it actually offers us a lot of privacy protection, but doesn't impact their view of the bay or Mount Tam. This is a photo taken from our kitchen window. You can just see kind of our level of exposure here. Our daughter's bedroom also faces out from this side of the home. And so obviously in moving the fence and increasing its height will not address all of the privacy issues, but it will make a pretty big difference in the privacy for our backyard area as well as our home. And the additional space in the future will allow us to plant some screening plants. But at this point, we're not proposing any landscaping. Just kind of highlight here the grade on the less steep side of our hillside where we keep our garden is really quite steep. On the other side of the kind of further to the right from this photo with the rest of the hillside becomes much steeper because there's kind of a downward slant across our current fence line. And just adding a retaining wall will really help to make a much more manageable and moderate grade for the hillside. Okay, here you can see the area behind our existing fence and the proposed location, kind of highlighted with the yellow arrow. The proposal would be to move our fence 8 inches within our property boundary and include some drainage behind everything located, obviously within our property bounds. The proposed retaining wall would only be visitable from our property, completely below grade from the uphill neighbor's view. And then this is a diagram of the fence and retaining wall design with solid redwood fencing, which will preserve the existing and prior style of the fence as well. And the proposed retaining wall would be pressure-treated lumber, similar in color to the existing fence. And in relation to a concern raised by our neighbors at 6 Wilkins, you can see the planned drainage behind the fence such that the runoff water would continue to be directed downhill towards Geldert Drive. None of the proposed work would change the existing manner in which runoff water flows down to the street. Okay. Before wrapping up, I just want to take a moment to address some of the concerns from our neighbors, the Candells at 95 Geldert. From their description of events, it would really appear that there's been an escalation over several years, due to lack of neighborly consideration, which would really not be a fair characterization of our relationship and our history with them. We moved into our home in 2020, and both of our families spend really a lot of time in the yard, so we were often out there together, often in contact on a daily basis. And prior to the survey, we frequently visited each other's homes, shared food, helped with computer projects. We're just kind of in each other's spaces a lot in a really friendly way, and really appreciate the importance of neighbors being considerate of one another. And since moving in, we've always been very responsive to their needs and requests. I will share that neither Vince nor I grew up in a town like Tiburon with the kinds of guidelines and protections that we have here. So that the whole process around kind of permitting is new to us. And so we weren't aware of some of these regulations when we moved into the home around constructions or replacement of structures. But in preparation for some landscape planning, we had a survey conducted last year. The Candles were aware that the survey was being conducted. They provided access to their property, even helped the surveyor in the course of their work. And just really unfortunate that our relationship shifted pretty significantly after those discussions. We really worked extensively to collaborate with them on next steps. We met with them at their home on many occasions over many months, really trying to evaluate the potential impact of some of our ideas on their property, really trying to understand their concerns so that we could identify a solution that would work and that would meet their needs. We made extended a lot of options and offers, including making repairs to supports to their property to make sure that the work that we were doing wouldn't compromise their work. And their response was that really the only option that they were willing to consider was if we were to move our fence back within about 1.5 feet from where it was, without any changes to the landscaping in the 6 to 8 feet behind our existing fence, which put us in a little bit of a tricky position of what to do. But before we could figure out how to move forward productively with them, we received without any notice a letter from their counsel threatening imminent litigation and redirecting all communication to him. So it's really unfortunate. We really made a good faith effort to work with them and try to figure out how we could resolve things in a neighborly manner and collaborate respectfully. And I recognize, my husband recognizes that change is very difficult, especially when, you've been in a home for such a long time and have become accustomed to how things are. And we believe we should be able to make reasonable use of our property. So the fence and retaining wall that we've proposed would really allow us to use our backyard space, much fuller use of our yard, and for more reasonable slope on our hillside without impacting the views of our neighbors of Mount Tiam and the bay, which was important to us. I also know that there were several other concerns raised in some of the letters, but since those are not pertinent to today's application, I'm not going to address those. Okay, so I just want to end by saying I recognize that the decisions are quite difficult and put you, the board, in a difficult situation. I really appreciate all of the work and thought that goes into this process. So thank you so much. And I know Sam is not here in person, but also just a huge thank to Sam Bonifacio for helping us work on this application. And if there are any questions from the board, we're happy to address any of those.
I have 2 questions. Did you have a structural engineer look at your footing? Because one thing that's really curious to me is that it seems pretty deep and the footing seems awfully small compared to what it's holding up. And then also the location of the drain tile in the structure also. So did you have a civil and structural and take a look at that section?
That's part of what we'll address in the building permit.
And then secondly, do you have a drawing that shows an elevation? So I assume that the 36 inches is not going to be the entire way. So do you have something that sort of shows the change with the grade?
I think the proposal was that we would follow the grade of the slope down the hillside for the fence. So keeping the height constant of both the retaining wall and the fence above it across the hillside. So it'll move, it'll move down alongside the grade of the slope.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, but it'd be great to see a picture of that. Yeah.
Yeah, I had a question related to that. Hey, can you explain a little bit about that? The motivate or the reasons through keeping, like, instead of like leveling everything, having it level and then building. So for example, the fence is just like flat
I
at the
see.
same elevation. Just
It's-
like, why did you choose that? And then,
Yeah.
currently it seems like your backyard, it slopes up, and then there's the existing fence, then there's kind of a flat path that's gravel right now. I think it slopes slightly upwards. I was wearing Birkenstocks when I visited, so it was a really stupid choice. Can you just like tell us a little bit about what it will look like afterwards?
Sure.
From I guess, yeah, again, from an elevation standpoint.
Sure. So the difference between the elevation in the far corner of our property that that connects with Wilkins Court, I don't know how to describe that side, is probably 10 feet higher than the elevation where the fence will end. So there's a really big difference between those 2 points. So we didn't want to do something flat across because it would be ridiculous. So I think that was kind of the motivation around just following the slope of the hillside, so that we don't start out at 0 feet and end at 10, that it kind of follows the grade. And then the goal with the retaining wall would be to keep some slope kind of initially, and then so that the bottom side of the hillside could have a little bit more of a moderate slope. So it'll be the same difference in elevation minus the 3 feet obviously cut, but it will have a longer space to kind of climb up. So it will be a lot less steep kind of overall.
Okay,
Does that help?
that makes sense, yeah.
Yeah, I think what you're missing from your drawings are your topos. So it's
Yeah.
topography, those lines that sort of show how it slopes all the way down.
That was my question also, because I didn't realize that the grade rises to the existing fence and then it continues to rise. And I was curious how you were going to get the 3-foot retaining wall for both of those. But in fact, you're not proposing to keep the yard level all the way to the retaining wall. Is that right?
Did you understand that question?
Because there's a,
Oh, well, you can answer, I think.
Did you understand the question?
Yeah, there will still be some grade within our yard,
mhm,
Quite a bit.
quite a bit, yes.
for a 3-foot retaining wall.
Mhm,
Yes. Okay.
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, I do. The current property line is the second fence, is that correct?
The current property line, so yes, so the red marking there is where we've proposed to move the fence to,
Because that is the property line.
because it's just inside of the property line, that's right.
And who maintains I guess I'll just call it the kind of the garden between the 2 fences?
We have done that somewhat jointly because it's kind of inside of both of our fences.
And that's now eliminated with the
Correct.
retaining wall.
Yes.
And the retaining wall details are in the building permit, is that correct? Because we had none in front of us, correct?
They will be in the building permit. Yes. Yeah.
So the fence, it might not, I don't have a great photo of this, but the fence kind of cuts diagonal across that strip, basically. So, yeah.
And I guess also with this, it's been looked at by engineering and the drainage of what happens with that retaining wall being there.
Yeah, that will be part of the building permit submission.
Okay,
It's that circle next to
Mhm.
the,
right. And we don't need that information now.
I think it's not in our purview to
Okay.
to review that, I think. Is that right?
Yeah.
Staff, could you
My
clarify?
understanding is this session is about the variance of the height of the fence.
Okay.
And then our next step will be applying for the building permits and putting all of the information forward that's needed for that.
And then in the building permits for retaining walls will require proper drainage to assure that there's not like buildup of water behind the retaining wall, and that it does maintain obviously stable slope. So it's both, under the building permit, that would be the detail that you would certainly have, make sure it's stabilizing the slope as well as addressing runoff from the building. There's not a particular water feature or anything going through here. So
Sorry, I have 2 more quick questions. Can you just for the board, just remind us, so how's the proposed fence tying into, presumably you're enclosing your backyard, right? It's, again, I'm trying to remember when I was out there. Towards Wilkins, it's tying into an existing section or how's it tying in to enclose?
We've actually left that area untouched for now, so we haven't submitted that as part of the application. There's no tie-in because there's currently a retaining wall that's in place that we need to arrange with the neighbors, kind of how to move forward with that piece.
Okay.
So we did not include that as part of this
Okay.
current application.
Okay, all right, thank you. And then my last question, I'll stop. 7.5 feet tall for the fence. How'd you arrive at that height? What was the motivation between that exact height?
That height provides level of privacy for our yard when we're outside, as well as some privacy for our home. Things below that really did not change really in any substantial way, kind of the privacy for our yard. And that height also allowed for continued view for the neighbors of all of the bay, even from kind of their lower residence, lower area from their home. So we felt like it was a really good balance of providing a lot of additional protection and privacy for our yard while not infringing upon the neighbor's existing view.
Got it, thank you.
This is more of a comment. I think what we're missing right now is a planimetric with the topography, with the topo lines, but we're also missing an elevation where we can see the juxtaposition of the existing with the new proposed. And that would be really helpful because we're just having a hard time visualizing. We understand the concept, but just understanding the relationship of everything would be really helpful.
I think there was a topographic map in the application materials, but maybe I am confused about that.
Is this?
There is, but
Yeah,
little
but
hard to read, yeah.
it's really hard to yeah, it's really hard.
Okay.
Yeah.
This, but it's.
Yeah, that's section. Yeah, it's just like a small section. Yeah, it's really hard to understand it with all of the different contexts, but also an elevation of the entire would be really helpful just because of the change that you're requesting, the variance. Yeah.
okay. Any other questions before we can let them go and open to public comment? All right, thank you very much. We will now open to the public. Each member of the public wishes to speak. You'll have 3 minutes. Please come to the microphone and state your name and address. And if anyone's in the room, you're now welcome to come to the microphone. I think we have some in the back that are making their way to the microphone. We will. I think they're all on. Speak louder.
Oh, really? Okay,
Uh,
I'll talk louder, but okay. Keep going.
I think it's fine. Sit. Like my dog. When you go to speak, please make sure you use the microphone. That you speak into the microphone.
Before we start, my wife has macular degeneration, so if we could leave those lights on,
Yes.
and and it would help her to be able to read what is written down, and she might need a minute or two
Sure.
longer because she got to read slower.
I'll defer to council on that.
Well, if it's up to you, but if you give one public commenter more time, you have to give every
That's
public
okay.
commenter
That'd be
more
okay.
time.
Okay. I'll extend for all public comment for this to 4 minutes.
I'll read fast.
Okay, thank you. You can, if you're from the same household, you can join time if you'd prefer. If you would like to read hers or. you
No,
can
no,
split.
she's
Okay.
very capable.
Okay.
My name is Richard
Ye-
the allotted time, but you can't, if, if you.
Whatever you decide is fine.
Someone
I-
else, because
I-
each person needs
I
to-
didn't, yeah, that's fine. My name is Richard Candell, and my wife's name is Marilyn Candell, and we own the residence located at 95 Gelder Drive. We would like the board to reject all requested variances. After we moved in January 1969, the former and original owners of 85 Gelder Drive, Dr. and Mrs. Robert Kennedy, two wonderful neighbors, asked us to plant and care for the piece of land behind their fence. We planted an oleander hedge and other plants on this steep sloped area. They were very grateful for our efforts for over 57 years. The present owners, Aaron and Vincent Accurzo, now want their fence moved up on the north side. They had a surveyor come out and place survey points in two places. After a few months, the poles leaned a little, as you can see from this picture. As you can see from this photo, instead of uprighting these poles, the Accursos removed the bottom of pole and placed it in a different location. By doing this, the string that was attached to the pole and ending at the end of the fence a distance over 120 feet changed the location of the fence to their advantage. Two other poles were set as seen in photographs you have. The Accursos added two poles on their own. The initial height of the string touched the top of the oleander hedge. The Accursos moved the string as you could see on this picture, 2 feet higher. And a fence should only be 6 feet in height. The statement that a taller fence should be placed to give the Accursos some privacy is ridiculous. Our house is above theirs. We will always be looking down at their yard, house, and activities, so we will always be looking down on them. No stakes or markers were placed, so we could see the height, location, dimensions of the retaining wall that is necessary at the northeast end of the fence. There is no reason to place an 11-foot tall fence in this corner, as no other structures need to be screened by such a tall wall. The proposed placement of the entire fence show no provisions for any drainage. For sure, water flows downhill and can back up and erode and weaken the front of our yard. The newly proposed location of the fence goes through the oleander hedge. I would like that hedge pruned vertically, not horizontally, so the part of the hedge remaining would shield us from the solid wood fence as proposed. So, Marilyn, you're on.
Thank you.
Speak up to it so they can hear it.
Okay.
You see it?
Yes, I can see it. Whenever I'm ready. Okay. I'll try to talk anyway. When we first moved into when we first bought our house, we were required by the town of Tiburon to have a soil engineer on the property the entire time they were grading and doing any kind of structural work. And so that was how it started. And after they had graded the part where our house would sit and determine where the garden would be, the soil engineer said it wasn't stable enough because of the springs in the hill, and they required us to take another 4 feet out off the top of the hill and lower the house, lower everything on the property. Naturally, that made the lot wider and longer, and we had no say over it. That was it. They also required a drainage ditch at the top of the property, which was because of the springs. And every house on the block has pipes coming down from their houses to the street, or they have some pumps. So it's not, and our neighbor next door, the water goes all year round, whether it rains or not. It's been going for 2.5 years now, and we've had no rain to speak of, and it's still going. So it's an issue. Anyway, they required us a drainage ditch at the top of the hill. And so we let them, they said where they wanted it and it's there. Then the first rain was pretty torrential and the water decided it would go a different direction. So it went down toward behind our house. And it behind a retaining wall that came from a cement retaining wall that was also mandated by this town to keep the hill in place. And so we had to bring another drain down, run it behind the house, and go back down to the street again. Then the next rain, it decided it would continue to go down the hill, and then it went under the deck. Then the fourth time, it went across the lawn and down there to the space that was between our houses. And so we put in a drain at the base of our retaining walls, which the town also mandated. So we have the entire property is held up by retaining walls. And then they put extra retaining walls in sequential positions so that they would keep the land in place and keep our house in place and our garden and everything else. So we had no say in any of it. It was done, because the soil engineer recommended it and said it would stabilize the property. And it's not moved an inch so far, so I guess it's working. And then, anyway, so we ran a ditch through that narrow place between our houses. And then we joined it to another ditch on another pipe on the front hill and ran it all the way down to the street. And that's been working fine too. But if you move the fence back and put it in, it's going to hold and then sink a barrier wall in the ground. Where's my water going to go? It's going to fill up that space between our retaining walls and their fence. Their fence is going to be so close to our retaining walls that we're not going to be able to maintain them. We can't change a board, we can't anything. And their fence is meeting my fence, so my fence is going to come down because I will not have two fences 3 inches apart.
I think we're at time, so just if you could.
That's fine. Anyway, so that's our concern, is that our property will go.
Okay, thanks very much. We'll
And we planted the entire place
Okay.
between.
thank you very much. Time's up, so we'll have to ask for anyone else from the public to speak. If you want to take your seats, that'd be great. Is there anyone in the room that wishes to speak? Anyone on Zoom?
Chair Rosner, I see no hands raised, but can we give it just maybe 10
Sure.
seconds or
Mhm.
so?
Yeah.
There are no public comments from the Zoom audience.
Great, thank you. The applicant has 5 minutes to address the board. If you would like to speak.
Yeah, there was there's been quite a lot of coverage of a lot of different topics. But I believe the focus of this is really about the variance to the height of the fence. And we have done what I would characterize as as collaborative as possible effort to both enhance our privacy as much as possible while also preserving our uphill neighbors' views. So we're really requesting the variance to the fence height in an effort to accomplish both of those things.
I think the only part that I will add is that the work that is being proposed is within our property bounds, and the neighbors are certainly able to make changes as they might need to within their property bounds. We offered a lot of solutions for moving the oleander hedge, for providing supports to their fence. We really worked really hard to try to find a solution that would work, and it was really hard to move forward productively. But the variance that we're requesting is to improve our privacy. It really does not impact the view that they have, and you can actually see that from some of the photos that they submitted today. And it feels like a balance of being able to provide some additional privacy for our yard, level out the slope for safety, and obviously I feel that we should be able to make some of these changes to our property, given that it is our property.
Thank you. Any questions?
I know there were maybe some other concerns raised about the drainage and other things, and obviously we will go through the proper processes for the building permit and make sure that everything is, designed appropriately and approved before moving forward with anything.
I have a question. There are two sets of fences right now, and the one of your neighbors, it seems to be higher than 6 feet because there's a bit of a foundation. There seems to be a wall there. Do you know how high that is at the height? I mean, do you have that documentation of that height as it goes down? And
It's in the application, but it is certainly over 6 feet. There are some parts of the fence that are the 7.6 in the corner where we're not doing any work, but where we measured is below the top of their fence. So it's in certain parts higher than 7.6, and that's above a retaining wall.
so that's from the top rail.
The top
way down
rail.
To the grade is
To the
7.6.
grade.
Okay.
More than that. Mhm.
That would be really helpful to see sections as we go down, as well as the elevations of what's existing.
Sorry, just to be clear, I'm referring to the existing fence that is that you can see on the corner built by the
Yes.
neighbors. Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Okay.
That's what I'm referring to, yeah, because that would be really helpful to understand.
Mhm.
Yeah. Why is the retaining wall 3 feet, 6 inches?
I'm not actually sure why the draft resolution had 3.6. In the application, we actually put 3 feet. But that 3-foot change it allows us to level out the slope that we have on the hillside. And I believe on properties where there's a difference in elevation, I think if something is built at the property line, it's kind of 3 feet underneath and 6 feet on top. And so we're requesting the variance for a higher fence on top of the retaining wall.
Sorry, I just want to confirm that. Oh. Okay, so the retaining wall is 36 inches, not in the staff report, it's 3 feet, 3.5 feet. Okay, so it is 36 inches.
36 inches
uniform.
is what,
Okay.
yep, uniform.
Got it. So it's 10.5 feet combined, not 11.
That's right.
Okay.
Yeah. And also just to be clear about the total height from grade, the natural grade is 7.6. It's not 11 feet or, whatever. And the story poles are placed at the appropriate height for that.
From current grade.
From the existing grade.
Right.
Yes.
Yeah, that was gonna be my question. I know when lawyers get involved, things change. Have you been able to or afforded the ability to view the story poles from the neighbors or not? I just want to understand if you have been.
Yeah, so when we were in conversations with them, they asked us to place story poles, which we had placed at 6 feet. I think there was the story poles that they were referring to. Those were there for many months. And we had a lot of conversations with them, viewing them from various areas of their home to understand that. It was not really enough to provide us with actually much more privacy than what we already had, and certainly not impacting their view at all. And so that was kind of the rationale for increasing the view. Since those conversations became more difficult, we did not see from their property the 7.6. But I think the photos that they submitted today were helpful in eliminating what that looks like.
Okay, thank you.
The retaining wall is not part of the factor of the 6-foot fence.
To add it.
Add it.
That's why they're asking for the variance, because otherwise it would be 3 feet plus 3.
Plus 2.5 feet.
Yeah.
It's 3, oh, okay, it's 3, it's not 3.5, it's 3, okay. 3 and 3, okay.
Were you gonna say something?
Just to clarify, the retaining wall would only be visible from our property, right? Not from the uphill neighbors.
The
side of the
retaining wall is basically flush, the proposed retaining wall is flush with the existing grade.
That's right.
Where you are now measuring 7.6 from.
That's right.
Yeah. Does that
Correct.
make sense for everyone? Okay. All right, thank you. Any other questions before we close public comment, bring it to the board? All right, you can take a seat. Thank you. All right, who wants to lead it off? Go ahead. This side?
Okay, just, spent a lot of time looking at this, site. I guess I'd summarize it this way. It does affect the neighbor's view. They said that they just want to add it for their own privacy factor. And I think that there are limitations. We have guidelines that suggest, that are 6 feet. And I didn't see a reason to go above that. I would not, approve the variance.
I'll go. Yeah, I fully support the applicants wanting to put the fence close to their property line, now that they have their survey, and making a more level yard. I did go to the neighbor. The neighbor walked me all the way through. I had appropriate shoes, so we walked through the oleander and all over the place. And I also knocked on the door, and the nanny answered and gave me permission to go around the back. So I went on the applicant's property as well. And I think that what I perceived on the site, I didn't see that the difference from 6 foot to 7.6 created a significant increase in privacy. I also looked from the lower deck of the neighbors and sat down in the chairs there, and that added 18 inches makes a difference. So I support the fence, I support the wall. I don't think that added height achieves enough for me to support that.
For me, I need more information. To be honest, for variance like this, we usually get some type of elevations to understand the topography and understand the juxtaposition of like the impacts. I did go to the neighbor, and there are some points where it did impact the view.
Yeah.
So I think a more surgical sort of examination would sort of help maybe mitigate some of the contention between the neighbors. But I mean, we as a board can't say anything about where they place it because it's their property. So we take that as a given, and where they place it is up to the board. So we're just here just to talk about the height, but I just don't have enough information to really make a general thing. I feel like there needs to be a little bit more surgical sort of examination of how this fence works in relation to the neighbors.
Yeah, I did visit the neighbor, and I did walk. Oh, I walked everywhere. I just almost killed myself a couple times. I'm very much in Phoebe's boat. I can 100% support the variance because there is the topography and needing the wall, and it's just the technicality of the wall and fence combination. Is at a 6 foot at a minimum. So even if we have a 6 foot, so I think we can make the findings for a 3-foot retaining wall and a fence above 3 feet.
Can I interject something? And I can be corrected if I'm wrong, but on a property line where there is a difference in elevation between them, is that not
So-
appropriate, pertinent
I
here?
mean, I'll let step, the thing is
But I mean, is that
well,
not, is
no,
that
from the variance, it doesn't meet the exception because the slope is very much on their, it's not at the property line where the slope happens, it's still, they're grading.
Okay.
Right, because it's still on the applicant's property. That change in elevation,
It's always struck from the existing topography, so they're gonna cut the grade, so we have to include that cut.
I think she was asking about the different,
I-
when there's different elevations at the property line.
But my understanding is that when a retaining wall is right on a property line that divides two properties, then the maximum height is 9 feet. It's a 3-foot height maximum for the retaining wall and a 6-foot fence. Is that not correct?
Is it
Our,
okay if I jump in?
yeah, our our planner, Samantha has some comments, I think,
Yeah.
explaining how the fence
it-
height
But I think we have-
works.
Yeah, so I think the exception that's being discussed is if there's a change in the surface elevation at a property line, then you can extend the height of the fence, because typically 6 feet is the maximum. And then if there's a change in elevation, but it has to be at the property line, you can go above that 6 feet, depending on what the difference is. So if there's a foot difference, you can have it at 7 feet without a variance. What's a little unique about this situation and why that doesn't apply is the change in elevation is, I want to say 8 feet. I should look at the section. It's about 8 feet from the property line. So we wouldn't consider that a change in elevation. And since they are proposing grading of that hillside, we would measure the lowest point, which is the new grade, as where we're measuring the height, which is why we're taking it as 10 feet.
So again, you said that the fence is from where the fence starts, and it is not a measurement from the retaining wall in this situation.
Yes, correct. It would be, so the height of the fence is measured from the lowest portion of exposed structure. So we would measure the bottom of the retaining wall as at the new grade as the lowest point, and then measure the 3 feet plus a 7.5 feet.
So 3 feet plus 7.5 feet. So we're talking about a 10.5-foot fence.
Correct.
From the applicant's side, though, the
Yes.
neighbor. at-
But they also have to, that's what they're asking for a variance for. They're not addressing this toward the neighbor. They're saying that we have a 3-foot retaining wall and a 6.5-foot fence. So
7.5.
7.5-foot fence. So we have 10.5 feet of fence, and that's why we asked for a variance.
Right,
And if the fence and the retaining wall was 6 feet, there would not be the need to ask for that variance.
no, but you don't have, yeah,
Well,
correct.
Yeah, and if I can kind of
3 and
frame,
3,
Right, but then it'd be 3 and 3.
right.
if I can kind of frame that a little more, if there was no retaining wall, it would be either a 7.5-foot high fence or a 6-foot high fence.
Right.
But because there is a retaining wall and the fence is on top of that wall, that they are combined technically as the measured fence height, even though from the uphill property on the top of the retaining wall, you're only seeing 7.5 feet of fence. So it's simply a matter of considering, part of the factor of the judgment of the variance as to whether that 7.5 feet, I mean, really, even if you brought it down to 6 feet, it's still a variance. But you
Give that.
can arguably say, well, that is what
Okay.
someone might look at in
Yeah.
terms of offense.
So you're saying that if they had done no cut, it would have been a 6-foot, if the 6-foot sections would have been in compliance, there's just certain sections that rose up to 7.5 feet.
Yeah, if they didn't cut the hill and simply put the fence up on their property line, it would be a variance for 7.5 feet.
Do you know how much of the property would have,
I can't tell you, like you said, we don't really
you don't have enough information.
Topo's a little bit obscure
Yeah,
relative to the
yeah.
plan.
Yeah.
Well, and I just want to clarify again, because I'm very familiar with that grade change on a property line part of the code. So that doesn't apply here because it's not exactly against the property line, or because,
Well, I think Samantha can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's because they are changing the grade, because they are creating new grade as
Okay,
opposed
if-
to being an existing condition.
It's kind of,
Well, it's kind
Or-
of that's correct. Technically, if there was a change in grade at the property line, which this is creating, if we measured it from the new grade, they could have 9 feet of combined height because that is the exception. But since it's taller than the difference, anything that exceeds, so even if you're cutting 4 feet down and you have a 6-foot fence, then that's 10 feet that's total, and you need a variance because 9 feet is the maximum exception to that rule that's allowed without a variance.
Yeah.
I don't want to go on a tangent on our code, but it's a little weird just generally because we live in Hillside, and when you have a hill, you usually put a little walls to create to retain the soil. But it's like if you're retaining the soil, then automatically you can't put another fence on,
mean,
but that's a whole other.
Yeah.
We should we
Our-
let's,
our
let's
board-
We're working on updating
But our
that.
board
Yeah.
always
But
looked
if-
at, our boards always looked at if it was a 3-foot cut and there's a 6-foot thing, 9 foot sounds huge, but it's actually not really.
yeah.
It's a given, and so
I-
we
Yeah.
usually say, sure.
Which is okay. Yeah, I'll continue my
Yeah.
my thoughts.
Yeah.
So I think discussing this topography and the technicality of why they need a variance, I can make the findings for the variance. But I'm gonna echo, I think what Phoebe mentioned is, when I walked on the neighboring property, the 7'6" fence did not solve the privacy issue. I think in certain locations, as you go back and back towards the house, sure, then the applicant gets more privacy. But this isn't like that patio is not like you're at a fixed location and therefore you're always it's a fluid, it's their only outdoor area, like living area really. You know, you walk a couple feet one way, you're looking right over. So I think to really protect full get, even like 80% coverage of privacy for the downhill neighbor, you need a much, much taller fence. And I think at 7'6", it's very intrusive for the uphill neighbor, I think, in a lot of locations. With that said, is it also the fence design? Are there other options for,
Landscaping.
not landscaping, but like a 4-foot fence with a 3-foot trellis, like open, I think there's maybe some options into maintain. I mean, I lean more towards, maintaining it more at a 6-foot fence height. But I could be convinced that higher is plausible if you make it feel more open, for, with just the design aspect. I mean, it is it's a wall right now. I think the design is just purely redwood 2x6s, right? So,
I mean, we have done that. We have said 6 feet, and then the top like 1.5 feet or something is like porous, 50% porous or something like that. We have articulated things like that, but I just don't. I don't have enough information here. I really don't know what's exactly
Yeah.
going on. That's my issue.
I mean, we could do this. We could leave it to, it sounds like you need some more information from just the elevations, potentially. Maybe it's good that we provide the feedback to the applicant that we can support a variance due to the topography. Well, I think you had view concerns, period, on your side. Two of us expressed that the 7'6", while we understand it provides a little bit of privacy, it doesn't really, we understand that the applicant wants as much privacy as possible, and we wish there was a solution that gave it to them, but that solution is a 9-foot fence.
Yeah.
So knowing that maybe there's an opportunity to be neighborly and work out maybe just a better, we'll continue it, but giving that guidance that there's maybe some room to reduce it and come up with an agreement among the neighbors. I mean, it's always nice to say ideally, but that's kind of where my head's at.
Yeah, I would certainly encourage further discussion, but I'd have to decline the variance, but I would just do so exactly that. We're giving them back to them that there is a solution. You're close to it. You need to resubmit this with neighbors' approval or find a way to have a 6-foot fence.
Yeah, a 6-foot fence on top of the retaining wall.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm fine with that. I thought the variance was in order to go from the 6-foot to the 7'6".
Yeah.
Because I thought that the exception was in place. So I agree. I think 6 foot, fine, on top of a retaining wall.
Yeah, I
Um,
mean, I'm there with both of you. I'm not that far from you. I just need
Yeah.
more information. I think there just needs to be a surgical look. And there just maybe a way to like play with the
Because
porosity.
you're thinking that maybe you could go higher than 6 feet. Is that what your head's at?
Yeah, I think there's some places, especially towards the back. Yeah. I mean, there's already a 7.5-foot fence there, so.
It's true. I mean, yeah, it's such a.
And there's all this planting there, so I just need more
If they
information.
want that approval, then that information ought to be here and the topography ought to be here. And we shouldn't have to try to
Yeah.
visualize that.
Yeah, I mean, that's where I stand.
Because of
is
that,
I'd
I
like
would
to
reject it.
Yeah, I think I'd like to continue it, so
Okay.
that's where I'd stand.
Okay, yeah, because I'm looking at the video I took and over on the when you're at the neighbors looking at the view, the left side is actually where the view is impacted.
Yeah,
And so it feels like it should be lower. I mean, again, my response was 6-foot fence, great, 7'6", not.
Yeah.
For that reason.
So,
Because I also don't think it achieves the goal. as
Yeah.
we were saying.
so if the board will indulge, if I can ask Samantha, the project planner, as I'm an interim director, just came on, I'm still learning the code. Samantha, to be clear, if I'm reading the code correctly, it does make an exception. So if there is a difference in grade, you can go up to 9 feet as a combination of the wall and a fence. So in the case of a 3-foot high wall, a 6-foot high fence would not require a variance.
Correct. It would still require approval through site plan and architectural review, but the variance would be removed if that height was lowered to a 3-foot retaining wall and a 6-foot fence for a combined height of 9 feet.
Right. Okay, thank you. I wanted to make sure I understood that for my edification and make sure that was clear for you and the applicants and the public.
But I think that's when there's a surface level change at the property line, which is
Which they're.
great.
Well, I think Samantha, if
interpreted?
they lowered it to 6 feet, that would, above that wall along this property line,
Mhm.
would
It's allowed.
be
I'm-
exempt from, that would meet the zoning.
Yeah.
It would still be subject to architectural and site plan review, but it meets the spirit of.
Yeah, I'm just checking the code to see if it specifies, because Alex, I don't know if this is what you're asking, but are you trying to confirm if that has to be an existing condition, or if you modify the grade, does then that allow you, like, can you still apply that exception if it's not an existing condition? Is that what you're asking?
I don't see it as saying anything about existing versus modification. It's just really a condition
Hmm.
of, so I didn't speak correctly. I want to make sure it's clear that if you had a 3-foot wall there, you could put, if that was existing, because if you have a 3-foot difference in grade at a property line, that's usually because you got a wall. So you can put a fence on that wall. And it's no difference whether you build the wall or you dig it out and build the wall, or you just add the fence on top. You can go up to combined height of 9 feet and still meet the height limit
Mhm.
on a property line.
I mean,
Without a.
So that just,
Right.
again, it's still subject to design
Yeah, yeah.
review in that case. It's still subject to,
I,
but it reduces the, I guess, the level of test for the approval.
I think maybe we have two things here, for the applicant to think about. The first is, I mean, they are still coming with a 7.5 foot fence, so we've given the feedback on that height of the fence. And I think we should continue. It sounds like we should continue to that. They can then decide if they make changes to that fence and they are then in code compliance such they don't need a variance and that can go through staff. That's a whole separate issue. That's a whole separate thing.
So they can possibly remove the variance if they decide 6 foot is enough for them. Then the 6 foot plus the 3 foot, they don't need a variance, and
If-
then they.
If
just
they've
go back.
determined that they're allowed to do that.
Yeah.
If staff determines so.
But if they remove the variance, they still have to return for design.
No.
review.
Not if it's 6
Not
feet.
if we do it.
It'll go to staff.
Nope.
I see.
Yeah,
Okay.
just,
But I think that's their decision, so it sounds like
Right.
we have given direction in our thoughts. I mean, you still think that there could be higher fence, you just want to see the sections better, so.
I want to see the sections and, you know, the way that I could see it getting taller is possibly through some porosity change. So instead of being 100% solid fence, maybe there's some compromise there where
Mhm.
But if they don't go above 6 feet, you don't get to see them. or
we
you
don't get to see it.
Okay.
But, and if it does come back, we'd like to see more information.
Again, let me double check with our esteemed planner Samantha.
Oh.
If they do put in a 6 foot high fence, that is still subject to architectural and site plan review.
Correct.
And while that can sometimes be done at staff level.
Mhm.
And
We can refer any projects, even if it fully complies with all of the zoning requirements. We do, or you, not me, or we collectively have the option to refer any applications to back to the board.
And I would say we have an active application and it, given the circumstances of this situation, it's one we probably would defer.
Yeah.
As opposed to making a staff level decision on that and then
Cool.
possibly risking appeal back to you guys in any case.
Yeah.
But I think part of it is any direction you want to take on this particular application. You know, you have an application in front of you.
Yeah, well, so we're gonna continue. Well, I'm waiting for a motion.
I'm gonna make a motion to reject the variance. Is that simple?
Reject the variance?
I'm sorry, yes, to not accept the variance on this application, correct? What we've been talking about.
Mm. Do we have a second?
No.
If I understand correctly, that means that they can go ahead and lower it to 6 feet on top of the 3 foot retaining wall, then I second it.
No.
No, do I not do that?
No.
Sorry.
What?
No.
You have an application, and you have an application in front of you that's both architectural and site plan review and variance. So it includes a variance, that's,
And variance.
and
I
variance.
see, I thought it was just a question of the variance.
So I'd like to make a motion to continue it to a date certain with better information and
I'll second.
that's it.
Is it, I mean,
Can I
I
ask
think,
for some clarification?
yeah,
If it's continued to a date certain, then we would need to determine if it's going either August 21st would be the next meeting, but that would be kind of a tight turnaround for the applicant to have to provide drawings by Monday. And then an option after that would be the September 4th meeting. So if it's continued to a date certain, it would just need to be one of those.
and in a situation like that, I would suggest asking if the applicants have received and understand that there's any direction. I think you've definitely made some suggestions,
Have to-
but is there any more specific direction from
Well, I
the
think we can
board?
specify specific.
And,
We don't have
and,
to-
and,
we can-
and also for, also.
I think he's asking us to
asking-
give more guidance on exactly what it looks like and
Information.
what drawings you'd like to see.
I would like to see some sections and I would like to see an elevation and a superimposition of the new proposed fence on the existing fence in a topography.
Yeah, I'm sure Sam has some examples to share of some recent fence applications. Sam?
I have lots of fence applications, so I'm happy to go through and provide some examples.
I think just for the public this is not an unusual request. I think fences on hillsides are very, very challenging, especially when they are long and there's difference in elevation. People on the board have submitted applications with in-depth, had to in-depth fence drawings. So it's not it's a very common ask. And staff can provide with guidance on those sections and elevations. With that said,
So there was a motion by Board Member Kim and a second by Vice Chair Rosner. So now there is a vote.
All right.
all in favor of continuing?
uh,
we don't know
Oh,
the date.
sorry.
Do we need to ask the
Yeah, the
applicant whether September?
You would, yeah, it's continue to a date certain and you haven't decided what is the date.
Should we ask the
Could
applicant?
ask the app-
I'll open to the
yeah.
public for the sole purpose of asking the applicant a date that they can submit the new application materials. If you'd like to come and
And I think in considering this, what you're asking for is more detail that would probably take some time to prepare, and I would suggest making it to a date uncertain, to give them opportunity to both consider any
Okay.
redesign and prepare.
I'd like to make a motion to continue it to a date uncertain.
second. All in favor of continuing this project to a date uncertain?
Aye.
Okay. Opposed, none. The motion passes 4-0 to 1 absent. The item is continued. Thank you. Last on our docket today is PH3, 28 Reading Court. The applicant has 20 minutes to present. Does anyone on the board need a break before we start? Bathroom breakers.
No. I was just wondering.
I don't have a material.
That's right.
There's nothing up there, so it doesn't take time.
We just put the plans on.
I won't share it. I'll just. I'm gonna put the plans up so we can see it.
All right.
Yours, 20 minutes.
Thank you very much. I'm Andy Hunt. I reside at 28 Reading Court. I've been the owner for 18 years. Thank you for your time. Thank you for the members of the public for staying so late. And I also want to thank Sam, who I know is still with us, for her, and Dina before that, for their help through this process of being both approachable, good to work with, but also practically minded. And I do appreciate that. This is a perhaps slightly unusual application for variance in the sense of there's 4 issues, there's 4 parts to it, 3 of which are really historic and are fixing retrospectively things that are essentially as built that were done either by accident, one by me, or before I moved in, and I've inherited them and I'm trying to now clear the air. So the first one is the one that was done by me by accident, well, ignorance, I should say, and that is a shed. There is a shed on the western side of my property that is in a setback to my good friend and neighbor who happens to be sitting here behind, where I have just a freestanding tool shed that I put in. I moved, I got off the plane from the UK, bought a house, put a shed. What do? Apply for a variance for a permit. I had no idea. I am sorry, pure ignorance. It's been there for 17 years, can't be seen from the street, can't be seen from my neighbor, and he's got no objections to it, but it is technically within my setback to the side of the house. Second issue is a deck that is to the eastern side and slightly behind. My house, by the way, slopes down quite a lot at the back. There's some flat space and then it's a hill. It slopes down into the Trestle Glen area. There was a deck there when I moved in, and this is the theme. There was a few things there when I moved in that turned out not to have been permitted. One is a deer fence. There was some side fencing and a retaining wall and various things. And this deck. In 2020, the deck wasn't looking so good, so I applied, got a permit, rebuilt the deck as it was, same location, same size. That permit was all signed off and everything was good. It came to light more recently that the original deck didn't have a permit. So that's what this variance is to apply for, effectively, retrospectively. The first deck, not necessarily the new current second deck, because that was permitted as a replacement to the first. Sorry about the technical detail there. That deck is within the setback to the eastern side of my property to my neighbour at 27 Reading Court. Put those two together and there's a lot size issue, well, sorry, a lot coverage issue, whereby I am over the 15%, I don't know if it's guidance or number anyway that I've been hearing about. A bit of history here is that apparently the land when it was built wasn't Tiburon land, it was Marin County land before it got incorporated into Tiburon. The house was built on the plot and it was already, just the house is bigger than the 15%, but apparently it was grandfathered in. I don't know all the details. My neighbour and friend across the road at 30 Reading Court did buy her plot of land, did build her house and still lives in it, and says that's the history. So the house is already 16.2% of coverage above the 15, and that's before any of this comes into being. But the shed and the deck, because some of the deck is over 3 feet off grade, because I'm on a slope, it puts it at a 1.4% higher. So I'm now a total of 17.6% of lot coverage. So I believe that's a third variance that I'm applying for. And then the other two items, well, the other item is really twofold. It's two fence posts that I explained. There was an as-built problem with myself and my neighbour at 27 Reading Court. I think things had been done in the past with an incorrect appreciation of where the property line was. My new neighbour at 27 moved in, got a surveyor to actually establish where the property line was. And some of my fencing, my hedge, my retaining wall was actually on his property. Quite correctly, he put a fence in and took my stuff down. So these two fence posts I need putting back are just to complete the fences that were there prior, that now my dog can get out. If I don't complete the fence up to his new fence is 6 foot, my fence posts are something like 4 foot. So completely shadowed by his, but I need to put fence posts back where they've now been removed. That is the sum total of the application for variance. Probably at this point you wish me to not say any more and stop talking and take your questions.
Thanks very much. I mean, you have 15 minutes. You're more than welcome to continue.
For Scott's benefit, I'll not take my 15.
Does anyone have any questions for the applicant?
Again, when was the house built, did you say?
So I'm not, 1972, I believe, though I could be off by a year or two.
Great. All right, thank you. You've yielded your time, it seems like.
I have yielded.
Thanks. We'll open to the public now. Public has 3 minutes to speak if they wish to address the board. We have a gentleman in the room. Please just state your name and address.
Yes, my name is Scott Yu. I'm on the west side neighbor there, and I think the contention of the tool shed that's facing my property. And I would, have no objection to the, if there's variance requests or so forth, I have no objection to it. So that's pretty straightforward, and simple.
Great, thanks very much.
Thank you.
Are there any members of the public on Zoom?
There's no public comment from Zoom.
Great. The applicant does have 5 minutes. Yield. Great, thank you very much. We'll bring it back to the board. Would you like to kick us off?
I agree with the four findings for the variances as stated in the resolution. I think those were well thought out responses to the four findings. So I have no problem approving all the variances that are requested. And just to note about the setback, I mean, it's done for health, safety, egress. It's done for neighborliness, and there's still a lot of room there for all that. So,
No, I saw and I've heard, good presentation, full support.
Yeah, I went to the site, I walked back there, I couldn't ring the doorbell or knock because of the signs, so I kind of shirked around where the workers were. And yeah, I fully support it. It's a small lot too for the lot coverage, so it's, yep.
Yeah, I also visited the site. The gentleman that we're working let me in the back, and you can clearly see the topographic and lot shape constraints. And you have a wonderful neighbor that has stuck around all night, so that's much appreciated. So I think I can definitely make the four findings. I'd be looking for a motion to adopt a draft resolution.
I'll make a motion to adopt the draft resolution and that it's categorically exempt from CEQA.
Was there a second?
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? None. The draft resolution is passed 4-0 to 1. Thanks very much. Meeting adjourned.